and welcome to my digital or W102 term project video presentation. My name is Hasaan Ijaz, and today, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be making use of this video to walk you through my term project, which is the multiplayer maze game. Now, before I actually show you how this game is played, and I would like to take and spend a couple of minutes to talk and walk you through the kind of coding that went into it. Now, firstly, I would like to mention and point to the fact that I make use of an FPGA to construct this game. And because I'm making use of an FPGA, I'm coding this game in VHDL on Vivado. And because I've done that, now I've coded the entire game in 4 modules in total. And I'll be referring to a schematic that Vivado has furnished to talk to you about briefly what went into this game. So moving on to that. So I have these 4 modules that you can see over here. I have the sync module, I have a keyboard module, I have a counter module, and last but not the least, the image generation module. So we'll start off by talking a little bit about the sync module. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the purpose of this module is to keep a track of the X and the Y pixels on the VGA monitor and allow it to interact with the other components that we have over here. Now, speaking of which, the other components that I have is the keyboard and the basis keyboard, which brings me to the keyboard module that I've written over here. The purpose of the keyboard module is to recognize the ASCII values of the certain keys that are pressed and then act upon them. Let's say if I press W, the ASCII value of W, the PS2 data of W will be converted to an ASCII value, and if that ASCII value is detected in my code, then an action signal or a variable gives a command to the image generation module to move the object on the monitor, because that's, of course, obviously that's why we have the keyboard. And now to talk to you about the most important or major chunk of my code, which is the image generation module. Now this, ladies and gentlemen, is the part of the code where all of the magic happens of my entire game. Now we'll have to refer to this VGA screen over here to talk more about that. So in this image generation module, what I do is I hard code these wall pixels that you can see in white color over here. I hardcode these wall pixels as well as these 20 by 20 two objects called Tim and Elif. All of this happens in the image generation module. To avoid hassle and to make my life easier, I also code the movement of these objects in the image generation module. And to make it easier for me and further be able to recognize what's happening in different parts of the code, I make extra use of comments in this image generation module. So in this, basically everything you see on the monitor over here, that has been created in this image generation module. I choose the background of my maze game as black, and the walls and objects are colored in white, just to make it more appealing to the eye. If, as demanded by the user, these colors can be changed in the image generation module as well. Finally, moving on to the last module that I have created for this game, it is the counter module. Now, the purpose of the counter module is to make use of the 7-segment display of the basis 3 board that you can see over here. Now, the idea is that, of course, the game is present and one can play the game, but you definitely want to play a game that's more competitive, that keeps you engaged and it's challenging. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, I decided to incorporate a count up timer that counts up to 60 seconds. And if both of the players are not able to reach the end goal of this game, which is they're not able to clear the maze, then the game stops, the game ends, and a time up notification is observed. Contrarily, if, let's say, the object is able to win the game, then, for example, player 1, or basically Tim, is able to win this game, then a U-win will be displayed on Tim's screen of the VGA monitor. However, if Elif wins the game, a U-win is generated on this part of the screen over here. All of this again is achieved in the image generation module all of the notifications. However, the counter timer I've created in the counter module. Having said that, now I'd like to show you how all of this code looks in reality. So moving on to that. Now, first of all, I would like to again mention to the fact that I'm making use of a basis 3 board which recognizes the code that I have created in form of bits. So basically, I generate a bit stream from Vivardo and then upload it to this basis 3 board over here. And because VHDL is a hardware description language, now my basis 3 board recognizes what I want to achieve out of this VGA and keyboard components, and therefore allowing me to interact with these as I have coded and demanded out of my code and basis 3 board. So moving on to that. So I control my TIM. I control TIM by W, A, S, and D. So please, let's try to see what happens. If I press W, you can see that the object moves up. And of course, it's a maze game, so you can't cross the walls. So the object is not able to cross the walls. Again, this code, I've coded these restrictions in the image generation module where I've written my movement code as well. And now if I press D, the object should not be able to move through the wall to the right, and it's not moving. Again, let's see something else. Now I'm pressing A and moving the object to the left. Let's see if the object is able to move to the left or not and through the wall. Again, you can see that I'm pressing A, but the object is not able to move through the wall. This highlights the fact that my restriction part of the code is working and operating perfectly fine. So now let's see if Elif is able to move as well. Again, I'm controlling her by P, L, and some keys over here. Again, Elif should not be able to move through the walls. As you can see, she's not able to move through the walls. Now, what I'll do is, I'll try to make TIM win so that we can see a U win and a U lose notification on the VJ monitor. So on to that. Please notice while I'm doing that I have not initiated the count up timer. Of course, at times you don't feel like being challenged and you want to play the game at your own pace. And for times like that, I've empowered the user to be able to use the count up timer as per his need, which is why it's only activated when I press and turn on this switch V17. And I'll be doing that after I'm done with this. So the object is here. Again, it's not able to move through the walls, and now I'll try to see if a proper UV notification appears on this part of the screen. Let's see that. Congratulations to me, because I just won the game. And as you can see, my game is working perfectly fine. A UV notification shows up on the TIM screen and a U lose notification shows up on Elif screens. Of course, you want to play a game that can be played time and time again. It should be resettable, which is why I've also coded the game. I've made use of a switch on the basis 3 board called W16. Now if I press this switch, I want you to notice that the maze, this U win, U lose notification disappears and the maze reappears. Now I'm going to press this, and I want you to notice the fact that the U win, U lose notification disappears and the maze reappears. Please notice that both of these objects are in the current initial positions. Now I would like to play and make the game more challenging, which is why I would like to use the count up timer as well. Now I revert back switch, I toggle switch W16. That's because if it's still turned on, even if I press SW or try to move my object, I won't be able to move my object. And the reason is that because W16 is on, it's time and time again telling the game to reset. Now if the game is in reset position, of course you can't move it, which is why we have to toggle it back. And now the game has been reset and we can play it again. You can see I'm able to move my object. However, this time around, I make use of the count up timer. And if I press V17, the count up timer is initialized. Now, after every second passes, the 7-segment display is incremented. And all of this, again, I would like to mention, happens in the counter module. gonna win this, so how about I try to challenge myself and play with Elf. If I win this, no point of counter primer because we want to see that notification. However, let's see what happens. Okay, I think I'm gonna win, so I'll just play around over here. Again, the object is not able to move through the walls as I've stated. And so yeah, we're around 58 seconds and we reached 60 seconds. So as you can see, time is up. We've reached 60 seconds. So that means my code is working and operating perfectly fine. One last thing about this game, and that's that I'll reset the game again. And this time around, I have started and I'm going to play with the timer on, and let's see what happens if I win this time around. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to pay attention to the fact that, of course, we're receiving a proper you win and you lose notification over here. But there's another catch to this, that because the counter was on this time around, the moment that Tim wins this game, the counter stops. So this basically tells us that Tim was able to finish the game in 38 seconds. And if you're trying to play competitive, so one can even note down their best time and then continue to play with their fellow friends as well. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings me to the conclusion of this entire maze game project. However, I would like to take this opportunity to discuss and delve a little bit on the kind of problems that I faced. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the most challenging aspect of my game was perhaps coding the movement of my object. The main problem was that I was trying to update the object's position while a frame was being drawn. Now, when I say a frame was being drawn, I mean that this VGA monitor over here is 1280 times 1054 pixels. That means on the x-axis we have 1280 pixels and on the y we have 1054. So after 1280 times 1054 pixels have been reached, a frame is drawn. Now, I was trying to update the object's position while this frame was being drawn. The problem was, if I did that, the VGA did not know where to paint or show the object, which is why I was observing a choppy frame. My pixels of the object were spreading, and I resolved that issue, and it was very hard to notice that issue on first sight. Similarly, I was also facing another issue that I do not have a clock divider for my movement module code. That is to say that I was utilizing the 100 megahertz clock of the onboard basis 3 board. Now what this did was that I was detecting the movement and the actions from the keyboard. Then I was at a frequency of 100 megahertz, which is why my object was moving very fast across the screen, and that was problematic. So what I did was I basically created a clock divider in my image generation module by making use of a counter, and that allowed me to resolve that issue. So having discussed all of the modules that went into the making of this game, having showed you what the game looks like in reality and in realization, and having discussed the problems as well, I thank you for bearing with me, and that, ladies and gentlemen, officially brings me to the end of my video presentation. Thank you.